we have a very special guest who will be talking about her experience, 25 years of experience teaching, and currently her experience from public education to correctional education. But before we formally introduce our guest speaker, I just want to also give a little check-in on where I'm at right now. So currently I'm at the Tucson, specifically the Arizona Sonora borderlands, which is right about here. And often when we have our guest lectures or events, we start with the land acknowledgement. As we know, for our land at SDSU Imperial Valley, we acknowledge our Kumeyaay, Kokopah, Quitsan, Kukapa indigenous nations. And today, I want to acknowledge and recognize the Otono indigenous nation of Tucson. If you want to learn more about the indigenous nations along the U.S. Mexico borderlands, please feel free to scan the QR code here. For my class, I'll provide extra credit regarding just a very brief reflection about what does this mean for you and education regarding the importance of knowing the indigenous nations that are in your where you're at teaching, but also, you know, the students that you serve. And a little bit more about the Transporter Scholar Collaborative, which is where we're hosting our teaching and learning along the U.S. Mexico Borderland Speaker Series. So the Transporter Scholar Collaborative is dedicated to the social justice of Transfronterizx students in education along the U.S. Mexico borderlands. As Transporter scholars, we are committed to implementing critically conscious research and practices through liberatory methodologies centered on the holistic student development of our Transfronterizx community in education. We're dedicated to fostering the success of Transfronterizx students through an interdisciplinary approach to research and practice in education and transborder studies. Informed by our research, we prepare critically conscious border educators and implement student-centered initiatives in education at the U.S. Mexico borderlands. And part of that critical consciousness is to know and understand our diverse student communities that we serve at the borderlands, and to be in solidarity with those diverse student communities, but also to be knowledgeable and aware and to develop our critical consciousness. So in the beginning of our course, I invited all of you as critically conscious border educators. And in that trajectory of developing that critical consciousness, we read Paulo Freire, we learned about the history of education in the United States. We also learned about policies and practices and unfortunate cases of oppression as well in education in the US. And all of that has built our understanding, but also our approach as critical conscious educators. But part of that critical consciousness is also praxis. And I do want to go back in a moment during Q&A to ask the class what praxis means, which is what does critical consciousness mean and how does it look like in practice? So part of that practice are our educators who are doing the social justice work of teaching our diverse learners, of creating those spaces of inclusion, of creating the human right to an education, regardless, you know, of where you're at. And that is what also critical consciousness means, and to be a critically conscious border educator. So I want to revisit that concept because now what we're seeing is that we're looking at basically social justice in practice. We're no longer reading. We are reading, of course, but now we're looking also at educators who are dedicated to that social justice. And that's what really our talk today is about. I also want to take a brief moment to highlight the team at the Transporter Scholar Collaborative. Some of the faces you might recognize here online joining us is Perla Soto. And she is a Transporter Scholar funded through the undergraduate research program. Also, your very own Neida Hernandez is also a Transporter Scholar, as you know, as your classmate here in class. I also want to give recognition and warm welcome to Dr. Efren Lopez, who is also a research associate at the Transborder Scholar Collaborative. So Dr. Efren Lopez is a researcher in the Transborder Scholar Collaborative, but also an ally to our transborder students. He wears many hats and has many research projects like the Nuestras Historias that some of you might be familiar with. He is a professor in English at SDSU Imperial Valley. And a shameless plug here and highlight, he will be winning, he has won previously outstanding professor at SDSU Imperial Valley. So those are just a few of the highlights and recognitions of Dr. Lopez that I want to acknowledge and recognize, and also just give a warm welcome to our as co-host for this session, but also a thank you for supporting our in-person and online engagement in today's class. But with no further ado, we want to give a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Torria. And for this, Profe Lopez will provide more about who is our guest speaker today.
Yeah, we're very, very happy and honored to have Torria Sledge here. She's an academic instructor at Centinela State Prison, specializing in general education development. Prior to joining California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, Ms. Sledge, a seasoned educator of 24 years, taught upper elementary in the public school systems of Georgia, Florida, and Nevada. So she brings a wealth of experience, not only of teaching at different levels and in different spaces, but also teaching in different geographical regions, which is a very valuable thing for us to learn. As somebody myself who's taught juvenile youth authority before, I know that it's extremely valuable to hear from instructors in different spaces, right? A lot of you maybe are planning to teach public school, but it's so valuable to hear instructors from all kinds of different walks of life. And with the wealth of experience today, her talk is entitled From Public Education to Correctional Education, Teaching Adult Learners in the California Department of Corrections. So let's give a very warm applause to Torria Sledge.
Oh, good evening. I am excited to be here. It is an honor to be in front of young people who are aspiring to be educators. It's one of the occupations that's being lost because it's at the bottom of a totem pole. This is probably the most rewarding journey you're going to embark upon in your life, being an educator, because you're going to touch a lot of lives. You may not see it immediately, but it happens. And you may run into them. I have a coworker now who has a former student who works there at the prison with us now. It's like, hey, how you doing? It's like, oh my God, I taught her when she was 4th grade. And so you'll meet them along the way and they'll tell you, they'll reach out to you, they'll find you. So you make a difference. So just remember that. That's probably the most important thing you want to remember. My goal today is to leave here, leaving you with something that helped you. So ask as many questions as you want. I want the questions. I kind of tailored this so that I wouldn't say too much, so it'll leave you with questions. All right, so it may be short. We'll see. I know how it feels to sit in seminars and conferences and Zoom calls and walk away thinking that was so irrelevant, you know, it was a waste of time. So I don't want to do that to you. Right. So I'll tell you a little bit about me and how I went from teaching public schools to teaching in the correctional system. Again, my name is Torria Sledge. I'm 24-year veteran educator. I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology from the University of Georgia. I have a Master's of Art in Teaching from Piedmont College. I began my teaching career later in life, early 30s. I spent my childhood and my teenage years thinking that I wanted to go into the medical field. And when I reflect, it really wasn't what I wanted, it's what everybody else wanted for me. You know, I was that student, you're so smart, you should be a doctor, you're so smart, you should be a doctor. And so in my mind, I kind of internalized that, and that's what I pursued. So when I graduated high school, I went to Mississippi State. I majored in biology, and I was relentless. Like, I was always in the lab. I didn't go home on breaks unless they shut the campus down. I got through my junior year in 2 years, but I was completely burned out. So I ended up withdrawing from school. I moved to Georgia, and I just started working. And then 4 years later, a child later, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go back to school and finish what I started. And I knew that I didn't want to go into the medical field, but I put so much time in. Like, I have all these hours, I just have to go ahead and finish. So I went to the University of Georgia, got my bachelor's, and then I gave birth to my second child the month after I graduated. And so now I'm sitting thinking, okay, I have this biology degree. What am I gonna do with it? I'm not interested in medicine anymore. I do not want to teach. I don't want to teach. My sister kept saying, you should be a teacher. No, I don't want to teach. I don't want to spend all day with somebody's kid. You know, yeah, I might end up in jail. I'm not doing it. And so I did it. But then I needed a job. I needed a job because I had a 4-year-old and a newborn, and I needed to be able to be home with them. I couldn't work at nights. And so I took a job as a substitute teacher. And miraculously, I actually loved it. I fell in love with it from day one. And I started with elementary. I did middle school, and I was like, I don't know. But then I went to elementary school, and the students they were longing for something, and they hung on my every word. And it just became second nature. I fell in love with it. And so while I was substitute teaching, one of the principals asked me one day, does I have a long-term sub position available? Are you certified to be a teacher? It's like, no. She's like, you should really think about going back to school. I was thinking, yeah, I just graduated. I have 2 kids. I don't know about that. She was like, you should think about it. And so I continued to substitute teach, and then I thought, yeah, maybe I will go back. So maybe a year and a half after that conversation, I ended up going back to school to work on my master's. I had two options. I had the fast track, which was a 9-month program where I could get certified, just go through some quick course, or I could go back to school. It was going to take another year and a half, 2 years to get my master's. I opted out for the latter, decided to go back to school because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing when I stepped into a classroom. I didn't want to lead any children in the wrong direction. And so I went back to school, and it was tough with 2 children. There were days when I had someone to care for them while I was going to school. I went to school at night, so I worked during the day. I took a job as a bus driver. I got my CDL, so it allowed me to drop the students off in the mornings for school. I had all day while they were at school to study. I go pick them up. I go pick my children up. And there were days when I had to take them to class with me. So I would come into a classroom like this with my my now 5-year-old and the 1-year-old, and I would sit them on the floor on a blanket or something and give them paper and crayons, and they were fine. And then they started to be the guinea pigs in the class. Like, let's use them for an example. And so they started to use them, and they were a staple in the classroom. So on days I didn't have it, I didn't make excuses. I just took them with me, and everybody was okay with it. Right. So, but one thing that when I started the master's program, I didn't know what to expect, but the curriculum, it taught me what to teach, not necessarily how to teach. But I was fortunate because I was in a classroom with a lot of veteran educators who were coming back to work on another degree or whatever. And so just having conversations with them, I'm thinking, oh, wow. When I start student teaching, I would like to be with one of them, and it just so happened that it happened that way. So by the time I was nearing the end of my student teaching, I went to talk to my professor to ask her if she could put me with a particular teacher at a particular school. And when I walked, she was like, oh, I'm glad, I was just getting ready to call you. I've assigned you to a teacher. And my heart dropped. I was like, who did she put me with? And it just happened to be the one that I wanted. And so this particular school is where my children ended up going to school. The teachers there, I talk about them all the time. If we talk about what inspired me or who inspired me, is that whole group of teachers. They were so caring and nurturing, and they taught me how to be the best teacher that I could be. They didn't try to mold me into who they were, but they helped me to become who I am. And they taught by example. So I spent a lot of time in their classrooms. They invited me to their homes, like we can do mock lessons, bring your children, we can sit down, we can talk about how, we can teach the same lesson to your 5-year-old that we're teaching to your 2-year-old, and you can see how to differentiate. And it was amazing. It was just amazing. So that's how I started the whole teaching process. I did not want to do it. It was never in my registry to teach. But in hindsight, I was always tutoring somebody. I was always helping people with homework. And my sister saw something in me that I didn't see in myself because I never thought I'm not a talker. So I was telling Dr. Lopez earlier, I took this assignment because it was a challenge for me. I don't like being in front of people. I don't. And it's funny because I'm just talking to my daughter and she said, but you do this every day. You get up in front of your students every single day. Like, but that's what I do. I mean, that's just what I do. I don't do speaking engagements. And so for me, this is a challenge. So if I seem a little nervous, it's because I am. All right.
You're doing amazing.
I would thank you. So I completed the master's program with honors. 3 months later, I was offered a job that following school year. So I graduated in May. August, I was in my own classroom and thus began my career. My first job was as a 4th grade teacher. I had learned so much, but there was still so much more to learn. Like you go in, you think you're ready, but then things start to happen. It's like, oh, now what? Right. So now I'm on my own and I have to figure it out. But I had teachers around me. So you will find this out. Your best resource will be other teachers. Right? So don't be afraid to ask questions. And I fell in love with my first class, so much so that I asked my principal if I could loop with them so I could teach them in 5th grade. And she agreed. And so I did that. And so we continued for 2 years. And then they had to leave me because they were going to middle school. And so I taught 5th grade for 1 more year at that school. And I transferred to the school where my children were. And this just happened because I was a present parent and I was always volunteering there and I did my student teaching there. They knew me. And so one of the teachers came to my school and said, this person is getting married. She's moving away. The school that I was trying to get to where my children were, no one ever left. That's the kind of community it was. So you started there, you retired there. So I shouldn't say this, but you either died or some life-changing experience, you moved away. And so just so happened this person was getting married. She said, you should call the principal. And so I did. And she said, come over, come see us. And usually there's, avenues you have to take. You need to put in for a transfer before you go talk. She was like, no, come see us. And so I walked in and there was a table full of teachers. The music teacher, art teacher, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, they were all there. And they had all, been teachers with my children. And so I sat down, had a conversation, and then I had to run back to my school because I was teaching after school. And by the time I made it to school, they were calling me. She said, we tried to catch you before you left the parking lot because as soon as you walked out of the door, they said, bring her home. And so I was elated. I put in my transfer. Long story short, I started working there. I was there for 14 years. And then I decided, it's time for a change. I moved to Florida. And I was only there for a year. And I moved back to Georgia because I just uprooted my daughter. Away from her friends, away from family. She wasn't happy. So I was like, let me do what's best for her. She went from being a very involved student to coming home, laying in bed, doing her homework, and then that was it. So I couldn't take it. So I moved her back home and I started working in Georgia again. And I was there for another, I want to say 4 years, different school. And then my fiance, some of you saw him come in, a couple of you. He got stationed here at the Navy base. And for a while, we were doing the long distance thing. And after the 4 years, 2019, I moved to Vegas. I didn't want to come here. So I was like, hey, I'll go to Vegas. We're only 4 hours away, we can commute. And so every Friday when I got off work in Vegas, I hit the road. So I was driving every weekend back and forth because he was working weekends, and so he couldn't. And days he could, he would, but I was driving, and then that got tired, very tiresome. So when the pandemic hit, I had decided that I was going to move here. Pandemic hit, nobody was hiring. And so now I don't have a job. What am I going to do? So I'm starting to look for jobs again. And just so happens he's also a pastor, I would say. So someone at his church told me about the job at the prison. And both of our first thought was absolutely not, because I watch TV. I know what goes on in prisons. At least I thought, right? And then I started to think about, I was like, why not? Why not give it a shot? It's a chance to do something different. You can still do what you love to do. And then so I did, I applied, they called me, I accepted, I came, walked through the prison, check everything out, watched a couple of the teachers. I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I didn't know what to expect because I'd never taught adults before. Like, I don't know andragogy, pedagogy. I don't know what to do with adults. But it turns out they're all the same. They're all the same. And so I know you're probably wondering, because a couple of you had said, what, you teach in a prison? Hey, aren't you? These are the questions I get. Oh my God, you teach in a prison? Aren't you afraid? How do you feel when the gates lock behind you and you hear that click? Like, are there guards there? So I get all of these questions, and I will address those, but not now, because I want you to ask more questions. Okay. What I can tell you is this about working in the prison. It made me love teaching again. I had fallen out of love with it because everything became so bureaucratic. Everything was about testing to the point where it was stressing the children out. Right? If you don't pass this test, you won't move to the next grade. That's a lot to put on 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds. It's a lot. And I was the teacher who, we would read a book because I knew the movie was coming out. It's like, we're going to read this book and then I'll meet you guys at the movies. Your parents can just drop you off and we'll go watch the movie, and then we'll come back and we'll compare, because that's what we do. Compare the book to the movie, similarities, differences, all those different standards they wanted. We could do it. And I was able to do things like that. And then it started to become, well, you can do it, but now you need to attach a standard to it. And then it was, okay, now the standard's attached to it. Now you need to get permission from the parents. And, it starts to become just not fun anymore. The kids, I would be the teacher, the principal would come in, where's Miss Sledge? Oh, here she is, and I'm laying on the floor, doing something with my students. That was just me. I was very hands-on. I just love being around kids. And so I fell out of love with it. And to a point where I wanted to go and drive trucks, if you believe that. But I did. I was like, I'll go drive trucks. I'll be by myself all day. I don't worry about people. I don't worry about all the rules. But then this job came along. And so it made me love it again. Teaching in a prison is nothing like you see on television. Nothing at all. In fact, it's just like any other classroom. The guys are very respectful. They are willing to work, especially when they know you care. They will do anything. I've only been there for I just made 3 years in December. I have 70 graduates so far, the most in state, not bragging, but the superintendent, she came through, the assistant superintendent for the area. She was telling me I have the most GEDs in the state. And because of that, our school is #1 for the first time ever. So they do good work. My job is to prepare them to has 4 subtests for the GED. They have to take reading, science, social studies, and math. A lot of them are afraid of math, so I spend a lot of time teaching math. They have to take what's called a ready test before they can take the GED. So it's like a pre-test to see if they're ready. And that's reading and, well, language arts, because it's reading, writing, and grammar, that and math. So if they qualify for math, it qualifies them for science. If they qualify reading, it qualifies them for social studies. And so I spend a lot of time with the language arts and the math, but mostly math. And they have to, I have classroom norms, expectations, so they know what's expected. They have to sign a contract. They can refuse, but they can't say they didn't know. So they can't use the excuse, well, I didn't sign it, because I have to read it to them. I have to discuss it with them. I remind them constantly, because they're, if you think middle schoolers, I don't know if any of you are planning to teach middle school, but that's basically what I deal with. They're middle schoolers at heart. A lot of them have been incarcerated since they were 16, 17 years old. Right? I have students ranging from age 18 to 80. And there's a lot of trauma that comes along with it. So things that are outside the computers, they shy away from. I don't know how to, I don't know how to work these things. It's what about the, I don't know how to work. I've never seen one of these things. And so it's a challenge, and it's stressful for a lot of people, but for me, because I was the teacher that I always wanted and always got the quote unquote problem children, simply because it was close to my heart. My youngest son ended up in the correctional system. That's one of the reasons that I decided to go ahead and take the challenge and go for this job. And it helped me during the time where he was getting into trouble. I was always wondering why, because I didn't raise him like this. Why is this happening to us? And I had to realize it finally came to fruition that I was being prepared for this moment. And I use that in my classroom because I want to treat those men like they're people. And when they come into my room, I see students, I see husbands and fathers and sons, all with possibilities. They are so talented, you wouldn't believe the talent that comes through there, artistic, just poets. You would be surprised at what comes through there, the minds that, and it's all because they've been told for so long that they can't and they won't and they never will, that they've internalized it. And when they come to my classroom, a lot of them, the first thing they say to me is, ma'am, I don't know this stuff. I've been trying for the longest time. I can't get it. I'm never gonna get it. So my first job is to deprogram, to show them what they're capable of, to celebrate their small successes so that they know that they can do something. And it's been the most rewarding work that I have ever done. I was proud of the work I did with children, but this for me just hits home. We talk about moving back east a lot, and the hardest thing for me to give up right now is the job. Everything else I can leave behind. The job is like, it would break my heart if I could take this job with me, because they don't have these opportunities in on the East Coast, especially not in Georgia. That's where my son was. They don't have the opportunities that these residents have, these inmates have. They can't go to school. My son wanted to. He couldn't even. He got his GED in juvie, but he couldn't go any further than that. These guys, IBC, SDSU, right? We have IBC has been there for a while. We just implemented the SDSU program. It's just on one of the yards right now because it's kind of a pilot, and if they want to attend SDSU, they have to transfer to that yard. But the opportunities are there, which I think is amazing because for the R and CDCR hasn't always been there. It was just CDC, Department, California Department of Corrections. Now it's CDCR, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So the rehabilitation is the educational part. And the college programs is to try to cut back on recidivism, you know, them returning. If they have something to fall on when they get out, the chances of them returning is very slim. I've had a student to come back. Had a student, and I saw him, he was in my class again. I was like, wait, I know you, because he was there early on during the pandemic, and he went home, and it's like, why are you back? He just said, I have a drug problem. And I get out, I get high, and I steal cars. So I stopped getting high, I stopped stealing cars, and I don't want to see you again. He's gone home again. So hopefully, he'll stay out. But their stories, I always say I don't want to know what they did, and I don't, because I don't want to look at them differently. But I did a writing project with them. And it was write a letter to your former self. Whether it's your 16-year-old self, your 12-year-old self, your 21-year, the version of you that landed you here. Think about where you are now and write a letter to your former self. Tell them whatever you want to tell them. Be as blunt as you want to be. I don't have to read it. If you want me to read it, I'll read it. But this is just for you, because I want you to reflect on how far you've come. And they did, and they wanted me to read it. And I read some of them. The stories are heartbreaking, and yeah, I won't go into that, but they did it, and they were willing to do it for me. It's like, I want you to read it. And the first thing I said was, you're the only one that's going to read it, right? Of course, I'm the only one. And if you don't want me to read it, I won't read it. So you'll be the only one. And they were willing to do that for me. But they come in with defeated attitudes. And it's hard to break sometimes. They come in with a chip on their shoulder. I just got one a couple of days ago, and he comes in like this, and he just sits there and he's staring. And then he started to loosen up the last couple of days because everyone around him is working, and we're laughing and we're talking and we're having a good time. Because that's just what I have them for 2 hours a day. So I have 18 students per session. I have 3 sessions per day. I also have a TA and a clerk. Right? We have we call him an educational officer, one of the COs. He's in the building. His office is kind of across from my office, but he's not in the classrooms with us. But if we need him, so I have to wear a body alarm just in case. I have to keep a whistle with me, again, just in case I need it. But I've never had to use it, and I hope that I never will. But they're very protective. And I've noticed, because I had a guy at one point that he started to get a little irate because I wouldn't let him have his way. And I noticed 2 guys was just kind of standing in a close vicinity. And so I just stopped paying him. I was like, oh, did you guys need something? They was like, no, we're fine. And I was talking to my fiance about it because he's former police officer too. And he was like, they were protecting you. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, that's what they were doing. So a lot of things I run by him because if I'm not sure, since he was in corrections, I was like, okay, but that's what they do. And we have a good time. You'll see now, well, I see now that when new students come in, I don't have to go through the whole orientation anymore. Like this, they'll come, hey man, so when you come in, you do this, we don't do this, we don't disrespect her, so they take charge, and classes run smoothly. You have some knuckleheads, you're gonna have that. That's with any classroom. You're gonna have those that try. But I'm shy, but I'm very blunt and I'm direct and I don't let them get to me. I'll say something smart or witty or off the cuff and the rest of them will laugh and then they'll kind of fall into place. So I try to have a good time. So for 2 hours a day, I just want you to feel normal again. Because COs don't operate like I do. They don't get the same treatment when they leave the classroom. So it's different. And so for 2 hours, just forget all of the prison politics, forget everything that you have to do out there and just focus on what you need to do right now. And sometimes I have to kick them out. He'll come by and say, I'm ready for him. And I'm like, hey guys, it's time to go. And then can I just do one more problem? Can you just help me with this last one? Sledge, I just want to finish this. So they are really into it, especially now that I have a wall that just says Wall of Fame. And that's where I put all of my diplomas, a copy of it when I get it. And so I filled up one wall and I have 2 spaces left on the second wall. And it's like, we say, what are you gonna do with, with when that one fills up, I just start this wall. I take whatever's down and I put it up. And I have two success stories. They're all successes, but I put gold around this one particular or 2 particular diplomas. One guy, he came in, he said, he was one of the ones that said, I'm never gonna get this. I can't do it. I've been trying. And at some point he gave up. He stopped coming to class. He forced me to write him up. They took him out of class and then they put him right back in. But when he came back, he was full force. He just graduated. He was with me from the beginning. 2021, he just got it, the last testing cycle about 3 months ago. And I said, if I can get him through, I can retire. Like that was my golden child. But I had another one, he transferred out to another prison, but before he left, he was another one that said, I won't be able to do this. I can't do this. But he got to a point where he was so good and he was getting things so quickly, he thought he was doing it wrong. That's how much progress he made. And he would come and say, Miss Sledge, I was doing this, but I was getting the answers too quickly. Can you check and see if they were right? And I looked and I was like, yeah, that's it. He was like, really? He was like, yeah. But he told me he finally got it because he said, I remember what you said about vocabulary. I tell him all the time, math has its own language. It's like learning a new language. And once you get the vocabulary down, the language down, and you are set. And he's like, now when you're talking, I know what you're talking about when you're saying these words. And so his new teacher emailed me maybe a month ago to say, yeah, Torria wanted me to let you know that he graduated and he wanted me to tell you thank you because he couldn't have done it without you. And he sent me a copy of his diploma and it's right at my desk. I had to put it there. So it's amazing. So I'll stop talking because that's pretty much it. I talked with a couple of my colleagues to get some final thoughts, words of wisdom for you, but I'll save those for the end. I want to take your questions now. Questions? I know I would. I said I wouldn't be long, but I was long.
For me,
Yes.
questions. I think that your story is really inspiring, like how you were able to do all that stuff and how at first like you weren't sure like what to do, but your instinct or that instinct of trying to help others like guided you through. So to me, it's like a really good inspiration.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So, as an instructor at a state prison, you focus with young people or like young teenagers?
No, so I'm at an adult institution.
Oh, okay, adults.
Yeah, so it's they're anywhere from 18. I think the youngest I've had so far is 20, but we have some that are 17, 18 there. So from 20 to my oldest right now is 63. So anywhere in between. And education is mandatory for them. They can't refuse. It's mandatory. They would get into a lot of trouble if they don't program. So. And they'll lose their jobs and other privileges, phone calls and things like that, so they come reluctantly, some of them, but they.
Is there a difference in the curriculum, like from public school education to like within the prison? Or is it
No,
all-
actually, it's the same. So we have we had 4 different levels, well, 5 different levels. We're down to 4. So we have ABE1, which is first grade through 3rd. ABE2 is 4 through 6. ABE3 was 7 through 9, but they got rid of ABE3. We have a high school course, cyber high, so it's all online, and then we have GED. So if they are lacking less than 50 credit hours, they go to the high school program. If they have more than that, they come to GED. But the curriculum is the same, the Common Core.
Something that really struck me is when you talked about the trauma that some of them have, or most of them have, I think you said. Are there some ways that what do you think is the importance of understanding mental health for any educator? Like, and how, have there ever been times when you felt like, okay, I gotta somewhat be a psychologist here too, as in addition to an instructor?
Yes, one of the things that's very important is that you need to get to know your students and recognizing the signs. This way for us, if we notice something is not quite right, we have to do a mental health referral. But the understanding that the trauma kind of directs their actions, and you have to learn how to counteract it so that they won't be combative. We do a lot with trauma. So just for me personally, and I think, and a lot of the teachers ask me, how do I? And honestly, I don't know, because it just comes naturally. It's not anything that I learned. We do have a lot of trainings on it, and it just kind of this way, because I don't agree with a lot of it, because I feel like what works for one doesn't work for the other. Because of what they've been through, it just kind of it leads them in different directions. And I can be stern with one and it'll work, but then I just had an incident today. Like, one of my students, and I say incident because it never really happens in my room, but he wanted my help. So it's one of me, it's 18 of them, and I'm already around them. I'm trying to get people logged in on their laptop. Someone's asking me about the math problem, and he's like, he calls me boss lady. Hey, he's like, boss lady, boss lady. I was like, hold on, and I'm going to like, boss lady, boss lady. I was like, wait, I mean, I gotta get him, I gotta get him. I'm coming, and then he got really upset. So when I finally got to him, I was like, what can I do for you? What do you need? And it was immediate, you know what, don't worry about it, I already asked your TA. And normally, a lot of teachers be like, but blah, blah, blah. I just said, oh, that's what we're doing today, because that's how I talk to them. So it's like, so that's what we're doing today. We get an attitude. Is that what we're doing? He was like, no, ma'am, I was just saying that, and now it's like, no, you're getting attitude. So I went back to my desk, and they don't like it when I don't talk to them. If I just be quiet for a little while. And a few minutes later, he came to my desk. He was like, boss lady, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, I just having a bad day. And so they are aware, and they would tell you. I stopped them because I don't want them to tell me what they've been through. If they're having a bad day and, I just found out my, mom died or whatever, because I had one the other day, that's a hard one for me because they can't be there. And he's like, my mom died and I'm just having a bad day and I don't want you to think that I'm being disrespectful, but I was like, you know what, do what you need to do, chill out. It doesn't matter, just work on whatever, put your head down, I don't care, but, and so I give them the time to gather themselves. Some of them, a lot of them have drug problems, even now, because they can make stuff. I don't know if you know, but they can make stuff in their cells. they can't get fruit because they make alcohol, things like that. So they still have this stuff going on. So I have to be vigilant a lot to see if I'm seeing any changes in them when they come. Cause then I have to, do things protocol. But just dealing with the trauma of it all, we have to learn to be empathetic. If you're not, then you're probably gonna have problems. You can't always, well, you need to do this because I said do it, because there's always, it's not, I tell them all the time, you are not your mistakes, right? We've all made them, right? Some of us should maybe locked up because of some things we've done, so we've all made mistakes. I don't hold that against them. They are not their mistakes. One of the things that I do, and I try to create positivity whenever I can for them, every day, every week rather, I have flyers in my windows. It's everything windows so the guards can see inside, whatever. But I have 3 big windows and I put a flyer in each one. One is inspirational for them. One is something about education. And then the other one is something funny, just some silly something I'll find that has to do with math or just education in general. And there are days, weeks that I don't put it up. I've gone a day and I have students passing by there, not in my classroom. Ma'am, you're not gonna put anything in the windows, And I was like, first, I didn't think they were paying attention. I just didn't, but it goes to show you that they are always paying attention. They were working on math the other day and I had taken down the coordinate grid anchor chart that I had in the room. And this guy's up and he's walking around, he's like, Miss Sledge, where's the thing that was there trying to do this and I don't see it there? I was like, well, I didn't think you all were paying attention to it, cause he was like, yeah, I was. And so I had to go and put it back up. So they pay attention. And the students will reflect their teacher, believe it or not, they will reflect their teacher. Even when I was in the public schools, I'm a quiet person. You probably can't tell because I'm rambling, but I'm a very quiet person. My students took on that persona. And I would take them to specials and we would be standing outside waiting and waiting. But they were so quiet that she never knew they were there. Or I would send them out into the hallway and I'd be in my room doing something and someone was like, I didn't even know your kids were out here. And so they mimic that. And so the students now, they do the same thing. And you can hear them telling other students in the hallway, certain things like, you really shouldn't do that, Miss Sledge, or this is this, and this is this. And so I don't know how to explain it. It's, if you can tell me, but it's just, I love, love, love what I do now. Absolutely love it. Yes, ma'am.
So based on your experience being teacher for children and being teaching right now adults, do you think maybe in the future would you ever go back to teach children, or which one do you like better?
I would never go back and.
No.
No. And it has nothing to do with the children. It's everything that's going on that's keeping me from doing what I need to do for my children. I have autonomy with the adults. I'm able to have conversations with the adult learners that I can't have with the children because it's limited in what I do. So we talk about world issues, we talk about sports, we talk about family, we talk about relationships, we talk about everything as long as it's appropriate. And a lot of things you can't do with students. So the feedback is different. The excitement is different. Like kids are always excited and exuberant. But with these guys, when I told one guy the other day that he had passed his GED, he had a cup of coffee. It's like, and it went everywhere. And he's just, man, Miss Sledge, Miss Sledge. And so just the gratification that I get from these guys. And I don't do it, I don't care if administration ever tells me I'm doing a good job. I have guys coming back saying, Miss Sledge, thank you. And the one that gets me is like, thank you for treating us like we're people. That's a hard one for me because I don't understand why anyone wouldn't treat them like people. And so for them to say that, and I have students coming to my doors like, how can I get into your class? Because they're talking about me. And the guys tell me that I've had COs that tell me, yeah, they talk about you on the yard, all the time. And so it's you teach people how to treat you, and I tell them that all the time. And so I try to live that. I try to lead by example. So, but yeah, I wouldn't go back to elementary school. It's too freeing right now. I can teach like I want to teach. I can't bring in things like I could outside. I can't bring in manipulatives and things like that. Like, you can't bring that. That's hard plastic. They take one, they can go make something with it. And so it's hard. You have to think of how to be innovative in a totally different environment, because can't give them hardback books. You can't do this, you can't do that. So it's a lot of stuff that goes along with it, but I enjoy it just the same.
Or maybe even more.
Yeah, maybe more. Definitely more.
I do have a question. Something crucial that is sticking with me is that you have mentioned that working at state prison is not like the negative expectation that media portrays, right? In fact, you have mentioned that it is like normal education where students have been collaborative and respectful with you. Uh, Something that you also mentioned is that we'll make mistakes. We can change from positive to negative and vice versa, right? I agree with that. Um I personally believe that we all deserve like second opportunities, changes, you know. And nowadays and throughout all the centuries, yeah, so all people deserve a change and opportunities, right? And especially, and we all deserve the right to education, right? But society, when it comes into when making crimes with people, you know, who misbehave and they get in problems with justice, with police, um society has punished them by not allowing them opportunities because they feel that those people treat them. And please correct me if I'm wrong with the following question. Um, I just wanted to know why do people in prison should deserve the right to education?
Did you hear? I thought you said why. Okay.
I believe we all deserve the right to education, but I would like to know more about. Okay, I believe that we all deserve the right to education by the fact that well deserved second opportunities. I agree with that, but I would like to know more about specifically with the people in who's in prison.
So as I said before, we're trying to reduce recidivism, them returning to prison. And if they have an outlet, if they have training, they can, when they get out, they can secure jobs. The system here is set up so that some of them have jobs waiting for them when they get out. Because they have vocational classes, electricians, plumbers, HVAC, all of that over there. So they have that, they can't get certified, but they are trained. When they get out, they can get the certification because they have gone through the training and they have job opportunities waiting for them. So they set them up in halfway houses for a little while to reacclimate them to society, and they are going to work. So if we're educating them, the chance of them returning lessons, and that's what we want, because the idea of rehabilitation,
Oh, okay.
you know, means that we're helping them to become productive citizens again. Right? And so it starts with us. We have to give them the tools they need to succeed outside. And once they get outside, we need people to give them another chance. I can't say that I believe in rehabilitation and I think you can't do anything when you get outside. It doesn't coincide. It just doesn't go together. So yeah, I think they deserve second chances. If you made a mistake when you were 17 years old and now you're 52, you know, you take it out of their punishment is being locked away from their families. That's punishment enough in itself. Don't put a whole lot more on them. And so when they get home, they need a support system. They need people who are willing to give them a chance. And again, as a parent of a formerly incarcerated son, he's been home for 2 years, I think. He'll get a job. He'll love it. Mama got a job. I love it. And my supervisor stuff. And then they'll get his, background check back. And he's like, oh, sorry, we gotta let you go. And my thing is, why let him start working without getting it? Because then that crushes him. And now he's at a point where he's gotten so many no's now and so many let goes that he's hesitant about going out trying to find a job. That's what I'm dealing with on the personal side. And so I keep him in the back here when I'm dealing with my students, because now they're my sons, and I have to treat them the way I want somebody to treat my son. And so we try to prepare them, and that's our main goal, is to prepare them for the outside world, college and career readiness. Yes, we want them to get their GED, but our main goal is to make sure they're college and career ready. So if they have a career to go out to, chances are they won't come back.
Thank you for answering my question. I really like the response. I also believe that they also deserve right to education. I just wanted to dive more in deep, specifically with that society.
Thank you. Thank you for that question.
So I have another question. What do you think is the most common misconception that people tend to have of people working in prison or corrections?
Of the people who are working there?
Not the people working there, but of people in general. Like when you say the first question that you always receive is what are you afraid of? What do you think is the most common misconceptions?
What they see on television. It just is not like that at all.
That's a reality.
You don't have riots every day. I mean, there are things that happen when we have to shut down. There have been some pretty bad things that happened since I've been there, and the campus, I call it campus, but they don't call it, I call it campus. But campus has been shut down, for weeks at a time. We can't have students because they can't come out, or, things like that. But on a day-to-day basis, it's like being on a college campus and they're in their dorms, and it's nothing like TV is, what I can tell you. It's just, we go, and some people still get bothered by the gates, because come through one gate and that one has to close before they'll open the next one, and then that one has to close before that one, and then you gotta walk and you gotta go through another checkpoint, and then when I leave that checkpoint, I have to go through another one just to get to my classroom. And so it doesn't bother me because I'm used to it, because I have to go visit. But some of the teachers say it still bothers them, even though they've been there for a while. They don't like to hear that click behind them. But that's what they do. That's what these guys do every day. So if I can do it for 8 hours, I think they're absolutely amazing, because everything that was designed to break them has not. They survived, and they lived to see another day, and they lived to tell the story. And some guys, they have children. And to hear them come to me and say, Ms. Sledge, I was able to help my child with her homework last night. That's major for them. It is major. We might think, oh, you're supposed to be able to help your child, but no, because I didn't have it growing up. I left school when I was 7th grade. I haven't been in school since I was 7th grade, but now I can help my child with his work. So those are the things. They are real people. I can't see them as anything other.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm just curious. I really like this conference. Adding to that, another question that came to my mind is the following. Misconceptions are based from what we hear and what we watch on television, media. What do you think, or in general, why has media display like misconceptions, like hiding the reality. Why is media not allowing us to see the other reality from the other world? Like, you know, like people, they have the right to education, they can do better, they can change society. Why?
Because it's not profitable.
Oh,
Like, it is not profitable. The more we can keep in, they get so much money per capita.
so basically business.
Business, prison is a business. Yeah.
No, that light just turned on, right?
Yeah, I just turned on.
Did somebody do that?
Like, no, no.
Would so something agreed with what?
Like it.
What?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a business, and the guys and I talk about it all the time. I found articles on it, and we talk about, 'cause they have to write argumentative essays. And one of the articles that I found was about how the about the business of the prison and two opposing arguments on it. So yeah, it's very lucrative business. They're run by private companies. So they make money from these guys. It's in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to connect back to my question, well, what I said that I wanted to learn from you. Because how does your trajectory affected what you give? And you absolutely answered it like during the whole, during the whole presentation, and yeah, thank you. Yeah, as our peer mentioned, it has been like really motivational, and also being able to see the kind of wait, because I missed it. The practices of being able to not hold back with the oppressors, but helping to give them another view and helping us to see, as our peer mentioned, the two sides, but really looking at the, I cannot say positive, but yeah, because you're helping others. And by so helping us to see, okay, if you don't feel comfortable with this, well, this is the truth. I mean, it's, you have to face it anyway. And yeah, thank you a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
If by any chance there like a difference in pay, like from teaching out of prison and then out of school, or is it about?
From what I am hearing, because I haven't taught in California, and California teachers get paid a lot more than cost of living. They make more outside in public schools than we do in the schools. Which is funny, because I had that conversation with my students the other day. I told them I don't do it for the income, I do it for the outcome. They're masterful. And like, I like that in Sledge, and every time someone new came in the class, it's like, she said that. And so, but yeah, I don't do it for, 'cause I know I can make more even there, but I'm at a place now and at an age now where peace is very important to me. And I can go to work in peace, I can work in peace, come home, not stressed out, you know, and it's, that's what's important to me right now. They asked me if I won the lottery, will I still come to work? I said, absolutely, I would. I never miss work. If I miss work, I'm absolutely sick. They're asking me this week, it's like, when you gonna take some time for yourself? You're coming to class. We're coming to class. But that's,
Yeah, sorry. Jumping back into my question of what media tries to hide the reality, the opposite, what can we do as a future educators to promote, or probably, I'm not sure if I'm trying the right word, but the points that, what can we do in order to share the society or future educators, future generations that people at a prison can also have the right education.
advocate on their behalf relentlessly. Don't be
So
afraid
we can
of-
fight that system of pressing that media is trying to portray misconceptions, advocate the right.
Advocate, vote. Advice that you have, use those to help somebody else. That's what this society is supposed to be about.
So our distinguished guests did say you had some final words of wisdom, but if it's okay, Dr. Falcon wanted us to ask a question of each of you, and that is to ask each of you to briefly tell us what inspired you to want to become a teacher. So if we can ask, so we'll kind of switch it for a second, if that's okay, yeah? And then ask each one of you what inspired you to become an educator.
You go first.
Yes.
I think I had really good professors, really good teachers. I think that when you enjoy to do what you're doing, it is reflected on the people who's around you. I can tell that my teachers, they had a passion for their job. So that inspired me in order to become a teacher, because they inspired me to be someone. I didn't know what I want to be, but I have really good teachers who I can say that they have passion. So I think that's what motivates me.
Anybody else? Yes.
So like, I'm a college major, I wasn't supposed to go in teaching, but I took a job position as an instructional aide. And I originally was like, oh, this is just for a resume, like this is for like just as an experience being a counselor. And I ended up falling in love with teaching. I really enjoy teaching kids to the point where now I juggle between 2 different school districts just to teach still in the old school district that I used to teach.
That's the passion.
Others? Yes.
Well, when I was much younger, I always wanted to become a computer engineer, relation with math. I hated math, but when I joined college for the first time, I always had a passion to help people, especially focusing with young people, teenagers in high school. And I ended up discovering myself that teaching was my passion, because I really enjoy, especially math, which is a challenging subject. Another reason I wanted to become an educator is because, well, I like helping people, especially the new generation, because they are the new future. Because when I was in high school, I didn't have the opportunities, and I wanted to be that positive change, something that I didn't have back in my high school years. So that's inspired me, especially to support people in a challenging subject.
Would people like to share what inspired them to become an educator? Yes. Yeah, raise your hand.
Yeah,
Raise your
okay.
hand.
Yeah, I'm a little bit shy too. Well, inspired from since I was little, I did said I wanted to become a teacher. I was between a teacher or a pediatrician. But life circumstances, I had lots of time in the hospital, and I was like, no, I don't want to make kids cry, not anymore. And I met un interno, they're like doctor percussionist, and he's like, oh, just go, like, do it as they mentioned with you, you do it. I mean, you already know all the medicine stuff and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, no, that's too much responsibility. And he just told me, well, and what about being a teacher? Like, you're in charge of 30 kids day to day, their values, their morals, everything they're learning. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you got a point on that. But learning, as or Pierre mentioned, you have mentioned learning of new stories, and also learning how the oppression has hurt even us and being a transporter or being here on the border, how others see us and how others it's like, no, I want my little kids or my little nephews to as I'm connected to my little nephews, just to be able to inspire something bigger, and also with them around them, be able to connect and create a community, but helping, not just like, oh yeah, we're here together, we're doing this and that, but help, as you mentioned, advocate for others and yeah, that's what is inspiring me up to now. It's a Friday, but yeah.
Anybody else like to answer that question?
Also my friend.
We'll turn the floor over to our distinguished guests for final or words of wisdom.
So I asked two of my colleagues to give me at least one word of advice. So one of them said, beg, borrow, steal, meaning don't be afraid to ask for help. Build on the ideas of others. Your most valuable resource as a teacher are other teachers. When I started my first class, I had everything I needed. I had books, I had manipulatives, I had everything. I didn't worry about it because they shared freely. Right? So beg, borrow, steal. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Another one said, find your own organizational style. Said if you're organized, you can't go wrong. And I agree with them. My students don't color code. I color code everything because I came from elementary. So everything's color coded, everything's numbered, but it works. And I know where everything is. We all agree that you have to reflect daily, whether it's on your way home in the car, whether it's right after the lesson, whether it's eating dinner, just reflect on your day. Even if it was a good day, how could I make it better? You know, so always striving to make it better. So reflection is very important. Flexibility. Things will change. Remember that a lesson plan is just that, it's a plan. They will change. They have to change because your students won't get it the first time. There may be interruptions that throws everything off. So you have to be flexible and don't stress out about it. This is what I plan to do, but I'll do a 2-month plan. I give them a calendar. This is what we do in March and April. It's April. I'm still doing stuff that was planned in March because we were shut down for a week and then we had testing and then this happened. And so just know that things will change and you will have to make adjustments accordingly. Have patience. Please have patience, especially if you're working with the babies. Have patience. They might not get it first time, second time, third time, fourth time, but don't give up on them, right? Because they are all capable. Just remember that. They may not all learn at the same rate. They might not get it the same way. You might have to stand on top of the table and do a little dance so they can get it, but you do what you have to do. Don't give up on them. Please don't give up on them. And then the most important, I think is the most important, have fun. Have fun. As you're creating this community of critical thinkers, and that's what we want. Critical thinkers, not, oh, he just get the answer, but what's gonna happen when he runs into a problem and the answer's not immediately there. So you wanna teach them to think critically, but have fun doing it. Don't make learning a chore for them. Make it fun. Okay? And they will respond. Trust me, they will respond. If they know you care, they feel it. They're children. They pick up on things. They know you care. They will work for you because they want to impress you. So just keep that in mind. Have fun. You said something about passion, and what I've always thought, passion leads you to your purpose. Okay? I didn't know it then, but I was always teaching. Apparently, that was my passion. Now it's my purpose. I look at what I do as a calling on my life. It is not a job for me. It is a calling. I was appointed to be in this place at this time, doing this thing right now. and I have to treat it as such. Right? I don't know how religious you guys are or faith-based, but there's a scripture in Colossians, I don't know it verbatim, but it says, work heartily as unto the Lord. That's my mantra. That is how I approach every single day. But help me to give these men what they need, right? Move me out of the way and take over. And my faith is very strong and they know that. I mean, before they go to board, they will come by and say, Miss Sledge, can you pray for me? I didn't know if it was okay first time it happened. And I had to look at the officer and say, can I do this? And you were not supposed to touch them or anything like that, but I was like, I have to connect with them. So we just bumped this right there in the hallway and I prayed for him. And so that for me guides every single thing that I do every single day. And I guess that's why I can be with them the way that I am because of that. So just if this is your passion, then you nurture it. Nurture it, nurture it, nurture it, do what you have to do. Right? Ask the questions, read the books, watch TED Talks, you know, whatever the case may be, but nurture your passion, nurture the craft. Because there's an art to teaching. You know, it's not about getting up here and working some problems on the board. There's an art to it. And you have to hone in on that and work on it. But that's all I have.
Want to obviously thank you for an amazing talk. You said that you didn't do that many lectures. Well, I think you should be on the lecture circuit with the way you really inspired us today. So let's all give our speaker a round of applause.